Hey everybody, this is Dude with the food here. I hope you all are doing very well. As you can see, I got my nice orange tie on. I think it makes me look a little sophisticated today. I don't know. Maybe it's not. I don't know. It's just me. But anyway, I want to take a moment to talk to you guys about this little invention we know as flour. Flour is one of the greatest things that we have been blessed with on this earth. Flour does so many wonderful things for us, it's not even funny. And I can find nothing more miraculous to do with flour than to make some really good bread with it. And guess what? Today I'm going to be showing you guys how you can do it too, because this recipe is a simple no-knead bread recipe. Let's get started. So this is a recipe I got from Jim Lahey and Mark Bittman from the New York Times on their no-knead bread dough recipe, and this is just a really easy bread dough to do for beginners. So I'm going to be starting off with 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour, and I'm going to be using 1.5 cups of bread flour. And the reason I like to use this combination normally is because all-purpose flour, it doesn't really have too much of a gluten strand inside of it, but it'll still make it nice and springy and firm. And then the bread flour has a higher gluten inside of it, kind of gives you that more chew and elasticity. So I like using this combination of 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour and bread flour. So that'll be a total of 3 cups of flour. But if you don't want to use this combination, just using all-purpose and bread flour is fine, much like that. So we're just going to go ahead, and now we're going to get on to the main part of it. So we're going to be seasoning this with about 1.25 teaspoons of kosher salt. That's just going to help give it flavor. And we're just going to add that right on it. Oh, dropped my spoons there. Accidents happen. It's okay. Nothing biggie. Alright, so we're going to add 1.25 teaspoon of kosher salt again. And then to that, we're also going to be adding 1/4 teaspoon of instant yeast. Now, the reason why you want to use instant for this is because it'll hold up a little bit easier. I think it'll kind of quicken the process just a little bit, but this is going to be a very long recipe. So you're going to take your claw, and you're going to turn your hand into a whisk, and it's going to look like a claw. It just makes all the flour up, It's not going to actually get turn into a claw, but the idea again is just to get that yeast and salt evenly distributed, just like that. And then to all of this, we're going to be adding about 1 and about 5/8 cups of lukewarm water, because this is going to be a very hydrated dough too. So you want to make sure that you're getting enough water in there to kind of make it nice and everything. So you're going to go ahead, you're going to give that a nice mix. And you're going to mix it all until it's not going to form a dough. It's just going to look like a really springy little thing, just like that. And when I say that this is going to quicken the process a little bit, the reason I say that because this is going to be kind of like one of those overnight recipes too, where it's going to take about 19 hours to ferment. But if you're using dry active yeast, it's probably going to take you just like a little bit longer too. So this will be kind of faster, so to speak, if that makes any sense. Sometimes my words suck. But hey, I'm a human being. I'm learning too. So if your hands get a little sticky like that too, don't worry about it. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to grab my bench scraper. So just give me one moment here. The bench scrapers too, when you're making bread and everything, they're really handy in the kitchen. They they clean up really easily too. They clean everything up. They get the dough off really nice. So these are really worth the investment. They're really cheap too. So. But again, the idea is you're not looking to make a dough per se at this point. You're just looking to get it all just kind of mixed up. You're not looking for nothing heavy and everything. Because the idea behind this is a no-knead recipe. And kneading just means you're just working the gluten until it, forms a nice stiff dough. But because you're just doing this, you're just getting the flour and the water all mixed up. And it's just going to sit for a while. You don't have to worry about this right now. And plus, with this long fermentation that's going to be happening, it's going to help develop its flavors. And it's going to help you just form this nice, spongy-looking, awesome thing. It's kind of hard to describe, but you'll see it later in the video. And again, you're just mixing it around. You're not looking for a nice, hardcore thing. You're just making sure everything is just evenly distributed. And if you do get a little bit of flour still at the bottom right there, don't worry about that, because this is all going to relax a little bit. It's going to spread out, and that dough is just going to pick up all of that excess flour that's on the bottom of it, too. So don't worry if you see just a little bit more on there. And just about right there, we are almost just about done here. Just want to make sure that I'm getting my hands cleaned off, making sure all that dough, because you don't want to see that go to waste. You want to use that dough. You're taking the time to make this dough, use it up. Don't let that go away. But again, just to making sure that everything is just evenly distributed. Everything is nice and coated. Making sure everything is just evenly mixed up, just like that. And this is going to get a little messy too, just to warn you too. But hey, messiness is part of the fun, right? Because you ain't really kitchen if you're not making a mess. Or, maybe if you're a clean person, that's okay. No shame in that. Cleaning is fun, too. It's healthy. But anyways. So, got it nice and mixed. Just getting my hand cleaned off. Making sure everything's okay. All right. And again, you see it's really shaggy towards the bottom right there, kind of like that. But again, you're not looking for a perfect little round dough right now. No, you're just going to let this relax. So this is good and ready to go. You're just looking for something that's just a combination of flour and water with a little bit of salt and yeast. And that is exactly what we're looking for right at this point. So now I'm just going to go ahead off the camera here. I'm going to grab myself a little bit of plastic wrap. And then the plastic wrap just makes sure that no air is going to be getting into it per se, but you do want a little bit of air inside of it, because the thing about yeast and bread and everything is that there's actually natural yeast particles all around us right now. It's in the air. It's waiting to get latched onto something so it can grab on for something to eat. So that's what we're going to be doing with this. We're going to be grabbing all of that air. So this is going to help the yeast inside the bread and all the yeast on the outside and everything. And my words are just going all over the place, aren't they? I just get too excited about bread. So much fun to learn about it. So anyways, we're just going to grab a little bit of plastic wrap again. We're going to coat the top of this, make sure that it's nice and tight, just like so. Sorry, I had a little sip of coffee there. But then you're going to go ahead and you're going to grab yourself a little paring knife or something. You're going to poke a tiny little hole in there so at least there's a little bit of air to breathe in there. So now this is ready to go to relax, and you're going to let this rest for 19 hours. And again, with this 19-hour period, you're just going to form this beautiful looking dough that's going to be coming out, which is to develop a lot of flavors, and you'll see. So the thing that I like to do, because a lot of doughs like to rest at room temperature, a little trick that I have is preheat your oven to the lowest temperature possible. And that'll just give it a nice warm area. You're just not going to bake it off or anything. So as soon as I put that in there, I'm going to turn the oven off. And that will already create a nice lukewarm area for your bread to rise. And, oh, hey, look, I'm in the Franklin. Look at me. Can you see me? But again, now you're just going to let this rest for 19 hours. And this is ready to go at a nice room place. So again, this has been about an hour, so you can already start to see it's starting to spread out like that. That's a good sign. That means that the flour is starting to hydrate, the dough is starting to relax a little bit, starting to take in its time fermenting and developing a nice shaggy dough. As you can see, then this is later in the night too. This has been about 9 hours or so. You can already start to see those nice little bubbles on the top of that. That is a good sign. That means that your yeast is activating properly. It's eating up everything that's inside. Oh, that light kind of got in the way. But again, you can already start to see again. If you see those bubbles on the top, you see a little bit of rise in the side of the dough. That is a good sign. That means that everything is doing its job. It's all doing its thing. And you are in a good spot right now. Spot? Bleh, my words. So then the next morning, here I'm waking up at the butt crack of dawn just to get this dough recipe made and shoot this video because I love you guys and I want you guys to learn how to make bread too, and I haven't even had my coffee yet. But anyway, since I didn't have my coffee, I was still surprised to see this dough was, just look at it. Just when you smell it, you're going to smell this huge thing. It's kind of like this big perfume of... It kind of smells like alcohol, but it's a good alcohol. But that's just because all that yeast has been activated. That shows you that you're going to have a good flavored dough. So that is a good sign when that happens. And when you tilt it around, you're going to see it's really springy. And that's all from the gluten strands that I have in it. Because you did the slow fermentation, it just helps it develop better. And you just took its time. You didn't need the hell out of it. And it's going to be so much fun. So then the next thing we're going to show you is how to shape it really quick. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a little bit of flour, put it over. You don't want to use too much flour because you want to keep your dough fairly hydrated. That's what's going to help it bake properly. So then I'm going to put a little bit on the top of it, just the top of it. And then I'm going to take my bench scraper and I'm going to scrape down the sides where I placed all that flour on top of the dough just to make sure that the dough gets nice and loose, and then it'll be easier for it to pour out of the tub here. And I'll show you that in a moment. So now the dough is going to be nice and loosened, ready to go. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to flip it over, and if we're lucky, that's just going to fall out with ease. You just got to be patient. Give it a moment, give it a moment, give it a moment, and we're good. Look at that. Oh, you see all those gluten strands happening? So wonderful. So now the next we're going to do, we're just going to shape it, but we're not going to be baking it right immediately. This is by shaping it right now because it took so long for it to ferment. You're just going to gently fold in the sides in fours. And this is just going to help the dough take its shape, and we're going to let it relax so it holds its shape too. So you're just folding it in gently, just like that. It's going to be a little shaggy at first. Do not worry about that. If it gets stuck to your hand, that's okay. So now it's nice and shaped up really well. We're going to put just a little bit more on the top, and we're just going to let this rest for about a good 15 minutes here. Let me go grab my pizza peel really quick. Here we go. We're going to let it rest on this nice little guy right here. So again, you're going to coat your pizza peel with just a little bit of flour. Again, you don't want to use too much flour because if you use too much flour, your dough is going to get dried out and it's going to taste like flour. Again, you want to keep it fairly hydrated because I'm going to show you guys how that's all going to work later on. So again, you're just shaping it just really gently at this point, and then you're going to place the seam side down just like so. If I could get it on there, I realized it wasn't on camera. There you go. See how it's just a nice shaped. It's still a little bit sticky, but that's okay. We're not going to worry about it if it's too sticky because, you know, the more sticky, the better, because you want to keep this fairly hydrated. So then the next we're going to do, we're going to coat it with just a little bit more flour on the top because we're going to be coating this with a tea towel. So that way it takes a chance to relax a little bit so it's not going to be all dried out and everything. So we're going to grab a nice tea towel. Give you a moment. Here we go. And again, you're just going to put this over the top of it and you're just going to let this thing relax for a good 15 minutes. We're not going to shape it just yet. Let it relax and then we'll come back and we will do the shaping. So again, we're going to take a look here. After 15 minutes, you can see it still holds up its shape really nicely. It's really looking like a good springy dough. And you can tell by that by poking your finger in it. If it springs back, that's a good sign. So now the next thing we're going to do the final shaping of it. And I'm going to show you guys how to do that. So again, you're going to start off again with just a little bit of all-purpose flour right there. Coat your hands a little bit. And then you're going to move it over here. So let me get a little more flour in my hands. This is the fun part too. So again, you're going to see it. You're going to take that handy dandy bench scraper. And you're going to scrape that off and make sure that it's going to fall off with ease, just like that. And don't worry if it falls off like that, because again, you're going to be reshaping it, and it's going to be fine. So the next thing you're going to be doing, get your hands coated, and again, like earlier before, just bring in all those sides just like that. You're going to go north, south, east, and west. Just like that. That's how we were taught in school how to do it. And then what you're going to do at this point, you're going to kind of tuck in those edges, just like let's show. I'm going to show you what I'm going to do with my pinkies here in a moment, because you really are using your pinkies for this to kind of bring in those sides. Because again, you got to get your pinkies cuffed just like that. So that way you're just tucking in those edges. So you're going to form a nice seam towards the bottom too. And that's just going to make sure that everything's going to hold together and it's going to be a nice shaped dough. Just like so. And you want to be gentle with this. You don't want to get all too rapidly with it because you want to be gentle with this dough. Think of it like as a pillow. So the next thing I'm going to be using is my handy dandy little proofing basket right here. You don't have to use these if you don't want to. I just like using them because it likes to hold the shape really nicely. And you can see I got all this residual flour inside of it. No, you don't have to worry about that because that just means I've just been seasoning my proofing basket with some residual flour that I get to shape my bread doughs in. And you don't want to bake in this too, otherwise you're just going to set that thing on fire. This is just for shaping purposes. So again, you're just going to take it, you're going to place it seam side down because we're going to be inverting it later, and that seam's going to open up later as we're baking this. You'll see what I mean later. So again, let's get it all in there. We already got all that flour at the bottom, so make sure that it's not going to stick. And now this is going to be ready to rest again for its final shaping. We're going to put a towel on it again. We're again going to place it inside of an oven that's just been preheated to the lowest temperature and turning it off just to make sure that it's in a warm area, and that will help it rise much better. Here I am in the reflection again, and we are ready to go. And you want to let that rest for a good 2 hours. Now, the thing that we're going to be baking this in is about a nice cast iron Dutch oven right here. And the reason that we're using this is because we're creating this enclosed space right inside of here, so that way when the bread is inside there, you put the lid on it, it's just going to create a nice steam thing, because again, because our dough is so hydrated, we're going to trap in all that steam, it's just going to help it poof up and form a nice airy crumb structure, which is exactly what we are looking for. So baking it in this Dutch oven is just going to help you get a better result in your bread. And about like an hour before you're about to bake, you want to preheat your oven to 450 degrees Fahrenheit, just like so, because you want to be using a nice hot temperature for this. And while your oven is preheating, you also want to preheat your Dutch oven too, because you want to make sure that you have a nice hot area so your bread can bake properly. So we're going to place that all inside, let that preheat, and then we will be ready to go to bake this off. So now it's been about 2 hours later, and here I am in some fresh new clothes, and I've already had 3 cups of coffee that day. So now we're going to be taking a look at our dough after the 2 hours that it's been resting. You're already starting to see it's already doubled in size. That is a good sign. That means that it is ready to go. So I'm going to be kind of doing this all in one take right here, because this is kind of the tricky part. But again, this will be easier than you realize. So after the oven's been preheated, after about an hour at 450 degrees, we're going to take out our hot Dutch oven. Make sure that you are using oven mitts for this, because I do not want you guys to burn yourself. Or burn anybody. I was almost going to open that up without my glove. See what happens? Yeah, make sure that you're being safe. That oven is extremely hot. So the next we're going to be doing, and you don't have to do this, I'm just laying down a little bit of cornmeal. I just think that cornmeal kind of gives it kind of a different texture, so to speak, too. But again, you could use flour, you could use wheat bread, you could use semolina, whatever you want to. I'm just using cornmeal. So we're going to put it on the bottom, and then we're going to be coating it on the top too, because now we're going to be inverting your dough onto the ground and putting it inside of the Dutch oven. I'm going to show you guys how to do that. So the next thing you're going to be doing, you're inverting it to get that seam side back up, and there we go. And then very quickly, you're going to grab a nice spatula, and you're going to scrape up that dough, place it in there, and pop the lid on immediately, and that's immediately going to create steam inside of that hot Dutch oven. So now the next thing, we're going to be placing it back into the oven, and we're going to grab that pot, we're going to place it inside of there, and then we're going to close it, and we're going to forget about it for 30 minutes. Whew, that was fun and exhilarating. So now that bread is going to be baked for about 30 minutes right now, and that's just going to help it form a nice dough. Now, the next thing, if you do have one of these baskets too, the thing is, again, you don't want to wipe out all of that flour, because that flour is just going to help it create a better non-stick surface. So the thing I like to do is that I like to put just a little bit more flour inside of it every time I use them, wipe it all in, just to make sure that you're creating a nice, non-stick, non-slip proofing basket kind of like thing, just to make sure that your bread's not going to stick to it after it gets done proofing inside of it. Now, when I said it's going to form a nice dough earlier, too, it says you're going to be baking it for 30 minutes, and that's just going to help it create a nice round bread at this point. Here, so it's been 30 minutes right about here, and I'm going to show you guys. So camera's going all over the place. But anyway, now you're opening it up, and we're going to check it, and this is what it should look like after 30 minutes. It's going to get a little steamy in your face at first. Don't worry about it. You can see, look at that. It's already formed a nice bread shape just like that. You're starting to see a little bit of cracks on the top. That is a good sign. That means that it's baking good and it's forming a nice crust. And that's what we're going to be doing too. Now at this point, grab this hot Dutch oven lid, trying to find the closest thing I can find because that thing is hot. And you're going to close it back up. And you're going to let it finish for about 20 minutes with the lid off. And that's just going to help caramelize the top a little bit. So now it's been 20 minutes, and now this bread is going to be ready to pull out of the oven. Grab your handy dandy mitts. And here we go. Opening it up, and we're just going to dump it out onto a nice cooling rack just like this. Oh, it smells like, oh, ovens are hard. But anyway, you're going to dump it out just like that. You can see, that shape of that bread is insane. Now, the reason you want to let this cool on a cooling rack, too, is because if you put it on just a nice hard surface, like on a flat surface, then that hot residual heat from the bread is just going to steam the bottom and make your bottom very soggy. We don't want soggy bread. We want a nice, golden, crusty-looking bread. Just look at that. And because, again, you baked it with the lid on in the hot Dutch oven for 30 minutes, so that helps you create that nice dome shape, which is what we're looking for. That also means, too, that your yeast properly worked. You formed a nice, airy crumb structure on the inside, and then you do it with the lid off, and then that just helps you form this nice, golden brown crust. And that's what we're really looking for, is that crust on the outside says a lot about your bread. That means that you baked it good. It has a nice structure, a nice shape. You see a little bit of cracks on the top, but not too much. But here, I want you to take a listen to this really quick. That crackling is one of my favorite parts of the bread, too. That means that it's starting to form a nice, crackly crumb structure. And then I'm going to tap it here. Now, when it sounds nice and hollow like that, that means that you have a nice, airy crumb on the inside. That is a good noise. And now I'm going to be slicing into it. I want you to hear how crusty this bread really is. Just listen to it as I slice it. Ugh, that noise is seriously the best. And now we're going to slice it on the inside, and you just take a look at that. See those nice little air holes, those nice air pockets on the inside? That is called the crumb. And that crumb indicates right now that that yeast had a good time to activate. Those nice airy holes means that it ate up a lot, and that you have a wonderfully soft interior but a crusty outside bread. It smells absolutely phenomenal too, and that's because you let it ferment for so long. It helped it develop its flavor too. And oh my gosh, I was just so happy I just had a model pose with this, because I was happy to make this bread, and it was so easy to do. All you need to do is just take a little bit of time for it, and you get that. Because that's the magic of flour. And when you can just take flour, and you can make bread with it. I'm going to have myself a... Ooh, excuse me, I had a hiccup there. I'm going to have a slice right now because I was so excited to slice into it. Oh yeah, by the way, before you slice into it though, you want to make sure you let that cool down for a good 20 minutes or so. That way that crust forms and the crumb structure relaxes a little bit. Because if you slice into it immediately, it's just going to get all goopy and sad. And I just took a bite right there and oh my gosh, so much flavors inside of this. Because again, you just took the time to let it really properly ferment with that 19 hours. And it's just a very easy, simple, delicious bread. That is why I love flour so much. Because you can make stuff like this. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys take a chance to try this bread dough recipe. This is Dude with the Food saying, I love you all, peace on earth, and happy cooking to everyone. Oh, that's how you cut carbs.